All right, everybody. Welcome to Solutions to the Top 7 Dementia Care Dilemmas. My name is Paige Fairbanks-Gunn, and I work for Kelsch Senior Communities. I'm one of the regional managers. I've been in senior housing for just a little over 25 years, so worked with many, many families. I live in the Arizona region. Kelsch Communities offers independent living, also assisted living, but we also have many, many memory care communities. We really are happy that you're joining us today and really utilize this time to use us as a resource. We want to be your guide. Ask questions. Please, if you have any questions, please place them in the chat. We will try to get to those. Or if we don't, we will try to implement those into our next webinar. And so thank you for joining us. And I have my co-host here.
I'm Pam Ostrowski. Many of you know me from all the reminder emails I just sent you. Uh, I am the author of It's Not That Simple, Helping Families Navigate the Alzheimer's Journey, which is a guidebook based on both my education and training, as well as my own personal 14-year journey with my mother, who had a dementia and then was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And I've been in your shoes. And I have worked with over 100 clients working through these dementia care dilemmas. So Paige and I thought this would be a really good conversation to have with you. And again, this is interactive, so please be sure to speak up. Let us know what dementia dilemmas you're running into. And thank you to those who did send emails, reply back to the email about what's your dementia care dilemma that you'd like to make sure we covered. So I appreciate that. Now, one thing before we get started with the top seven is that here's the challenge with this topic. A person with dementia doesn't want to lose their independence, doesn't want to lose their dignity, and they are already realizing that their capacity and their capability is waning. They're struggling and they know it. So the last thing they need is for a family member to point it out or to ask them a question they can't answer or to chastise them while they try to figure out how to respond. Because people with dementia need 10 to 20 seconds sometimes to respond or to make up a story. So we want to make sure that when you walk away from this webinar, that you walk away with compassion and empathy and a different way of behaving. Because I can tell you from my client experience, most caregivers are triggers. Most people who love them the most and want to care for them the most. I know I was a trigger for my dad, and he had vascular dementia at the very end. And it was just like this, butting heads, or it was very heartbreaking, right? And so we don't want that for you on your journey. So just a couple of overall tips, come from a place of them helping you, and they're more likely to cooperate rather than you telling them what they should do, because they're not going to listen to that. And that's just an argument waiting to happen. And then Paige and I were just talking about this before everyone joined. Logic doesn't work. Reasoning doesn't work. Well, you know that basketball is on every Tuesday night. That's your favorite basketball team. Why didn't you watch the game? That's not a way to start a conversation. So, as opposed to saying, oh, hey, I'm going to be watching Channel 5 and the Nuggets are on. Are you planning on watching the game tonight? Or be more specific. So it's help showing them that you can use their help and engaging them in a positive way. Okay, so let's get started with dilemma number one. All right, checkbooks, handling money, the computer, bills, and credit cards. These aren't in any particular order, but I can tell you this is one of the first questions I ask is how is money being handled? So Paige, do you want to start off with what your thoughts are on helping our attendees with how to handle money with your loved one with dementia?
Absolutely. Well, this is a big topic that comes up with many families as they are going through their dementia journey. Um, you have to always lead with understanding. You have to understand that you need to lead with safety. Think of safety. It can be very, very dangerous. There's identity theft involved. The families have to resolve, the whole entire family needs to understand what is going on with mom or dad or your spouse's um, financial situation. Are you double checking things? Are they forgetting passwords? Are they, getting online and transferring money to people that you don't know? There's just so many scam artists out there. I mean, they're so good out there. I've fallen for a few and I'm like, wait a minute, I can't click that link, or oh my gosh, I don't want to respond. I think it's extremely important that you are leading with practical safeguards for your loved one and really trying to take your heart out of it. You're not taking it away from them, but you're making sure that you are protecting them. It's leading with protection. And a step-by-step, guide is definitely knowing what is going on with your loved one's bank account. Do you know their passwords? Are you on their bank account to help them make sure that they're managing the bills properly and that they're managing the money properly? You have to be able to act on their behalf, to make sure that these things are being taken care of properly. And another big thing is if you are not power of attorney or on for, durable power of attorney for finances, you need to make sure that you get that advance directive probably in order, or make sure that you are, as a loved one, if you are a spouse, of course, you most likely are on the bank, I would think. Not always, but as far as adult children, make sure that you are on that account so you can have access to see what is being paid, and are things being paid. You definitely don't want the lights being turned out and the utilities being shut down because they're not able to pay the bills, and that's a definite sure tell sign that we have a problem.
Yeah,
If
no.
there's those things that are going on. But also too, it's, taking steps to protect their assets and prevent fraud. Overall, it is about safety and making sure that you are safeguarding them from identity theft and scams, because the scams out there, like I said, are so difficult. And we'll get a little bit more into, you can have access to phone banking and everything. We get down to that, but those are just some definite tips, but making sure that you are really supervising everything.
And the thing about the power of attorney that's important is that if someone is diagnosed with dementia, then it's the estate attorney's job to determine if that person understands what they're signing. So if you don't put this paperwork in place, like I don't know if you guys watch the trust and will commercials, but there's always somebody popping up and saying, doesn't count. You have to put it in writing.
Right.
And putting it in
Yes.
writing sooner is smarter, because the bottom line is that we're exposing ourselves, not just them,
Mhm.
but us, to a lot of logistical nightmares if you don't have power of attorney, which is the financial side of things and the legal side of things. Then you need a healthcare or medical power of attorney. So, and
Right.
all those things have to be signed when this person still has the capacity to say, yes, I agree, because the estate attorney's job is to ask them, do you understand what we're talking about? And
Right.
if there's any question, then whatever was in place, including if there wasn't anything in place, that means the state gets to make the decisions. Now, usually there's some leniency there where they'll say, well, it'll fall to the spouse. That's not legally the case. Legally it should fall to the state. Complete strangers making decisions for your loved one. If you're okay with that, I'm okay with it. But most people aren't. So that's a really important point that you brought up, is that it's from a paperwork perspective. So we talked about banking. What are your thoughts about how do you handle the credit card?
With credit cards, I would say simplify the credit cards, get rid of unnecessary credit cards. My husband's aunt, I think she probably had, I don't know, 15 to 17, 20 different credit cards from Home Depot to you name it, every department store. Get rid and consolidate down some of those credit cards, and just use maybe one or two. And also, too, that's going to help eliminate with a lot more confusion for them as well. I mean, that just seems overwhelming and too much to manage. So really close those unnecessary credit cards. It's going to be much better for you as the loved one and the family member too to manage as well, because you're
Yeah.
trying to manage your stuff, let alone trying to manage, your spouse or your parents or your
Mhm.
loved one. So, and use joint accounts just carefully and making sure that you're managing. But I consolidate, get rid of credit cards, get one or two. That's it. That's all you need.
So, so my thought on that, and this is gonna be a theme today, is don't take away the thing that brings security,
Right.
turn it off. So
Yes.
you're going to hear this. Give them credit cards, give them their purse, but none of them work.
Mhm.
Or you
Yeah.
limit exposure to $100 in each credit. And all you have to do is call the credit card company, explain the situation, and say, I need the credit, I need a separate credit card with my number on it with
Limits.
our credit limit. And then maybe you use a prepaid credit card that you can get from, the grocery store or whoever sells gift cards. And that's what your loved one gets in their purse or their wallet that they can use, and they feel empowered. Remember what I said at the beginning, dignity. They don't want to lose their dignity, their independence. So they get to keep everything. They get to keep I'm gonna spill the beans. They get to keep the car keys. They get to keep their wallet. They get to keep their purse. They get to keep all the
Mhm.
things that are important to them, including their cell phone, but it doesn't work. It's broken. So, because the charger isn't working, because the charger's not in their room. So, when we'll walk through these, but it's important to realize that as we age, even as children, we become emotionally attached to things, items like where's my purse? Where are my keys? Where's my wallet? And so where's my cell phone? Uh, where are my sunglasses? But some of these things can be dangerous to our loved one if used improperly, and they do not know any better. And depending on
Yeah.
where but even at earliest stages, they feel they do, but they don't. And all that does
Yeah.
is create emotional stress between the two of you, or as many people are as involved. And and that's not what these years should be about. It should be about building relationships, having moments of joy and happiness. And so dealing with that is not something you should have to deal with. So it's really,
Yeah.
really important to keep that in mind. Now it appears
I,
that we have a question.
okay.
Um, so Michelle says, my dad has Alzheimer's. He lives with my mom. Michelle, while we're reading this, can you please put in how many years he's had Alzheimer's or what kind of symptoms he's, from a capability perspective, we need as much information as possible to answer your question as best we can. So he does not recognize my mom off and on throughout the day. Sounds mid-stage to me.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but it's common for it to come and go. So never feel like they're stuck and they can't remember you unless they haven't seen you in years, and then that's a problem for many reasons. So how is it best for her to handle this? He thinks there are people in and out of the house during the day, but it is just he and my mom. So it sounds like you've got some hallucinations. That may actually be Lewy body in combination with Alzheimer's, because Lewy body's the hallucination dementia is kind of how I think of it. Um,
Yeah.
but he was diagnosed last June. So that's interesting. So I would say that the best thing and we're actually going to talk about this, is not recognizing you. So I'm going to hold on to the answer for that one, Paige, because we do talk about difficulty in mistaking identities of who someone
And
is or the fact
roles.
that they don't recognize them. So that is coming up. So please stay with us for that. Okay,
Yep.
so one of the things that I wanted to talk about with the money question is um, when it comes to computers. So I have a high tech background. I've been in high tech for more than 30 years, and computers are the are even more so every day. They become more dangerous to people who don't know how to use them. And by danger, I mean exposing your identity, clicking on things that you shouldn't, which then has them stealing all the data and information, which includes banking information, by the way, passwords, everything. So I would suggest that you get them a tablet, or if they'd like to play with their phone, strip all the apps off of it and just put no phone app, no Facebook app, no messaging apps, just whatever it is that they might want to play a game. No browsers, because that's where you can start clicking on ads and getting into trouble. So, and what we're really trying to do, to honestly, is the worst thing someone can do is watch a screen. And we know this with children, but it also applies to people who are aging. And frankly, to us, I hate to tell you, but guess what? Watching TV is bad for you, for multiple reasons. So it's the least stimulating thing you could possibly do. Even when you're watching a sports game, it is not stimulating. It's emotionally potentially exciting, but it is not stimulating the brain. It's not requiring the brain to learn anything or to engage in any way. So honestly, I'm hardcore. It's like no laptops, no computers, no tablets, no phones, because they should be getting the stimulus that they need and not being distracted with monitors. So I just wanted to emphasize that before we move on to the next question, Paige.
I just had one more quick comment for those of you that maybe know someone that has early stage, maybe they've just been diagnosed with, it's called MCI, which is mild cognitive impairment, or maybe you're on the call and maybe you've just been recently diagnosed. I would highly, highly recommend get LifeLock and
Yeah,
get a Title Lock for your
yeah,
home.
yeah,
So
yeah.
those monitoring, because I've been using those for years, and if there's anything that comes up, they will email you or text you right away.
And just so you know, Paige is not endorsing LifeLock. There
No,
are
I'm
other
not. I'm just saying
triple,
what I use. No, I'm not.
right, but AAA and AARP also have
Yep,
tools that can be used. That the bottom line is that you need to have some protection on everything so that you've got somebody in your corner if and when this were to happen. So
yep.
absolutely. So Paige, what's our next topic?
Okay, our next one is okay, they want to drive.
Just that's
What do
it.
you
It's the
do?
driving question.
Yep, what do you
So
want to do? They want to drive. What do you do?
So for me, and I mentioned this just a minute ago, is I get a lot of my clients say, well, it's time to take away the car. And I'm like, no, it's time to take away the keys. And I say, no, it's time to take away the car. So think about this. Keys, again, are an attachment to independence. It's the keys. You don't say, where's the car when you lose them? You say, where's the keys? So that is a point of familiarity. My dad had his own little wallet of keys and everything, and he carried that with him till he died. And so that's the security. Think of it as a security blanket. And so the conversation to have, excuse me, is not about it's time for you to stop driving, but instead to say, look, you keep the keys, but we're going to take the car into the shop. It needs an oil change or whatever it might be that, that makes sense. Needs new brakes, needs new tires. And then the car doesn't come home. And depending on your loved one's situation, so how far into the dementia journey they are, if they don't see the car. So right now, my car could have gotten stolen. I could have left it somewhere. It's in my garage. Well, I think it is.
Right.
But that's where I left it. I can't see it. If it's in a carport, or if you live at a independent living, it's under the carport or in the garage at independent living. It's not right in front of you like your car keys are. So my point is that you basically, and Paige is going to talk about the other half of this story, is to talk about your pros and cons of keeping the key, keeping the car, allowing them to drive. And I hate that phrase. And because you're not giving permission to someone, one who's probably your spouse or your adult child, or to your parent, you're not giving permission to them to allow them to do anything, because that is a great way to start an argument. But instead to say, let's think through the safety of this. And that's, Paige, I know this is your pet. So I will
Yes.
let you cover the pet. But the question then became, when my dad, because my dad actually ended up in a Safeway parking lot, and then he was gone for 4 hours. The community called me, got off the sheriff's posse over in Sun City, Arizona, and everybody was looking for him. And he had parked in the shipping dock. He pulled into the wrong driveway, and so he wasn't in his parking spot. And he fell asleep because vascular dementia, you don't have as much oxygen. So it made sense, sort of. But we were all in a tizzy about the whole thing. And so he was a retired lieutenant colonel. So I had to be very careful with how I broached this topic. And I said, Dad, what happened is unfortunate. And I don't know that it won't happen again, do you? And he's like, well, I hope not. And I said, that's not good enough, because you're scaring me. You're making me worried. I'm having to leave my work and come check on you or to see how you're doing. And so it's not just about you and you having independence to drive. And I said, what about if I take the car, and then anytime that you want to go somewhere, I'll come pick you up in it. And
Right.
and I said, because the big fear is, what if you get a flat tire? You run over something, you get a flat tire. Now you're on a busy street. You have two knee replacements. You use a cane. You scream vulnerability. And it doesn't take much for someone to pull up next to you and try to help you by whacking you over the head with a tire iron, or frankly, just pushing you over onto the sidewalk and taking your car. I said, there's so much risk here. So, Paige, I know that safety is a big thing for you. So I'll hand off at that point to you.
So safety is huge for me. I know when my dad, I wouldn't get in the car with him because first of all, I saw things on the car. Uh, Part of the tail light was broken. And then I saw a little part of the bumper was bumped into. So, I mean, just really take a look at the vehicle,
Yeah,
first of
good
all,
idea.
and then also ask yourself, would you get in the car with this person? Would you get in this car? Would you get in the car and ride with this person? And also, too, what type of physical limitations does your loved one have? Do we have a cane involved? Is there a walker that's involved? They have physical limitations right there. No doubt about it. Maybe they're independent with this device, and that's great. We want that. But if they have those devices and they're driving in a vehicle, that is a very, very big concern. Have there been a lot of falls going on? You don't want to have somebody driving in a car that is having multiple falls at home. And it can go down a huge
Reflexes.
path. It can go down a big path of destruction. I mean, and really, the independent thing with the driving, I know I couldn't say, Dad. Finally, he got to the point where he knew he couldn't drive anymore. He's like, he didn't feel safe, which thank God I didn't have to deal with it. But others, you have to lead with kindness and say, really, it's all about, I love you. I'm concerned. Can we just maybe talk about some alternatives, or, let's get the car in to get it fixed and get the oil changed and all this. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and set up for some alternative options for transportation. I can take you, my brother can take you, whomever, but set up a family unit or some sort of, transportation schedule where your loved one isn't having to do that much anymore. And then if you're, if you're looking at moving them to a community like an assisted living, They don't have to worry about that anymore. They're going to do all the driving for them.
Yeah.
But it is ultimately about safety. You can get the doctor involved to help you. You can have the DMV do a test, but I will tell you, if they have a diagnosis of dementia and if they get in a car wreck and they hurt themselves or hurt someone else, they're coming after you.
You're
And it is
liable.
not good. You are liable, and it is a huge liability. So the driving thing is very, very scary. And if you live in Arizona, which I'm sure we have some Arizona people, we get seniors out here that wander off in the desert and they get lost and they die in their car,
Yeah.
or they get out of the car because they're lost and they go out and they die in the heat. So
Yeah.
it's very, very scary. You have to think about, pull your heart out of it and think about the safety of
Yeah.
them and other people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that's those are all excellent points. And unfortunately in the hour, because I can't believe it, it's already the bottom of the hour. But we can't give you exactly how to work through your situation. But if you want wording, if you want to walk through your particular situation to kind of sketch it out as to what you're going to say, reach out to me at pam@itsnotthatsimple.com or reach out to Paige at pfg at Kelch Senior, and we'll help you with that. You don't have to
We'll
do
help
this
you.
alone. Yeah,
Right. And
absolutely.
you don't have to be the bad guy. We can give you those tips. You've got
Right.
DMV retest, you've got physicians. There's all sorts of things that you can have. Disable the car.
Yeah, well, and
Take the car
it's
away. Yeah.
well, that's my thing. Take the car away,
Yeah.
it goes away for an oil change or whatever, and then the mechanic found something. Again, this really depends on where your person is and their cognitive journey. So, all right, Paige, let's move on
Exactly.
to something that's near and dear to both of our hearts, which is how do you know when it's time to move your loved one either into assisted living or to assisted living with memory care support, or whether it's time to bring in-home care, anything besides just one person taking care of another, like what it sounds like Michelle's situation is, the mom's taking care of the dad. So what are your
Right.
thoughts on how to address this?
Well, deciding to move your loved one with dementia is incredibly emotional. It's complicated. It's filled with a lot of guilt and doubt. Those are all very, very normal feelings. But again, you have to think about the safety and quality of life that they're in. Everyone wants to stay at home. We understand that. But is it really the most safe situation? Um, the biggest, if you can bring in home care and make the family come around and you're providing the care at home, absolutely. But if there are gaps in care, they're left alone, they're not getting the care that they need in the home, it really can be a sign of abuse. It really can.
Yeah.
Love and protection and safety is placing someone. It's not abandonment. You're getting them care, you're loving them because you're moving them to a community or into a setting where there's professional caregivers. These are the professionals. These are the experts that understand how to deal with caring for a loved one. Now, we work with you as a team because you know your loved one best. We find out all the things that they love to do, who they are as a person, what they did, and what's their life story. And then we integrate all that into the community and keep them as independent as possible, but we provide the safety and the care behind the scenes. And it really does, it's working together with the community and over communicating. But having, the signs and times when you see these accumulating risks happening in the home, um, and you're having worse days at home versus not, you really need to start looking at either getting care in the home or looking at a care community or a group home type setting or whatever you choose to do. But going out there and looking, there's nothing wrong with looking, and I suggest everybody needs to go and look.
Yeah,
Um,
whether no matter what. the situation.
Exactly, because safety at home sometimes is no longer manageable. It just isn't because it becomes super stressful on the spouse or it becomes super stressful on the adult child. And so it just leaves you in a panic mode and you're scrambling to find out what am I going to do when mom has fallen and now we can't get her off the floor. What are we going to do? Or we've fallen and broken a hip and she's off to skilled nursing. Now what do I do? She can't go back home. Can't get a wheelchair through the front door or she can't get on the bathroom because nothing is accommodating. So there's all sorts of things that come into play when they're at home. And
Yeah. And it's the other thing, you were talking about care, and I'm on the flip side of that, which is skilled stimulation. So back to the TV thing, that is not an option. So a lot of people, so 30% of people, about 30%, a little lower actually, of people 60 and over live alone. And that means that there's potentially very little outside stimulation or socialization. Now, if you're
Mhm.
mobile and you're still socializing, stimulation and socialization are two different things. So just because someone's talking with you or you're talking to somebody on the phone, that's not necessarily stimulation. Stimulation is learning new things, learning a new game, even, and playing that game, engaging in things that require strategy or planning. Those are things that grow the brain cells and keep you young. And so with someone with and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but a lot of people say, oh, well, my person, has sundowning syndrome. And it's like, actually, they're just bored and they're sitting at home and they're not
Okay.
doing anything. And by 4 o'clock, you're just bored. And so you get up and you start acting out. So we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But it's important to understand that stimulation is a much more complicated activity than people give it credit for. And it's not to be confused with socialization. And so when we talk about why it's important, it's not it has nothing to do with how much you love your person or how hard you're trying. It's important for you to define the criteria for where that break point is. So what is it? And you don't need to answer this, but what is it that would have to happen in order for you to say, yes, it's time for my loved one to move to assisted living or assisted living with memory care? I say that split those two up because usually assisted living, you can have some, as long as you're not a wanderer, you can pretty much live there with mild cognitive impairment or early stage. When you get to mid stage, things get a little dicey. And so it's probably better to be in memory care. But ultimately, everyone. It's a docked luxury cruise liner. So it's important to
Mhm.
realize that there's so much going on, whether it's visually overhearing conversations, sights, smells, everything is stimulating. And we just don't get that at home. For those of you who live at home alone, you pretty much have your routine and what you watch on TV and taking the dog for a walk, and that's your routine. So I think that's something to keep in mind is what is your criteria for the next stage or the next step, which is moving forward. So and we're actually kind of needing to move along a little bit, Paige. So do you want to ask oh, this is one of my favorites. So what are we talking about next?
Ooh. Oh, this one's yours. Okay. Cell phones and calling social media prevents a caregiver from resting and relief. How do we deal with
Yes.
that?
So, so with cell phones, there's first of all, we have to remember back to the logic and reasoning. Just because they own one doesn't mean they should have one. When you think about some of the laws that are happening now about kids on social media, at least they know how to use their phones, which is maybe is the bad part of this. But people with cognitive impairment don't. And they may go through their contact list and just call every single person. Then guess who gets called for and says, your mother's harassing me. She thinks I'm somebody else, or she thinks that she hates the place that she's in. How could you do that to her? And because they don't understand the situation. Siblings are the same way. Mom seems fine. Why did you put her in that place? And it's like, well,
Mhm.
yeah. So rather than create more problems, like you're not already in that situation already, But rather than making it more complicated and more challenging, it's better. They can have the cell phone just like they can have their keys and their purse and their wallet, but the cell phone doesn't work. Okay. So the only thing you do is you just let the battery die, right? And then you lose the charger or you never bring it over or whatever. So those are the best ways to avoid that. And um, this usually happens as a result of family members feeling guilty about shutting off the loved one. That's like they have dementia, and we need to accept what that means as far as how the brain functions. They are not who you used to know. They are evolving into someone else with different likes and dislikes, different behaviors. And especially if you've got someone with vascular dementia or Lewy body dementia, by the way, vascular dementia, you can sort of diagnose simply because they usually have high blood pressure and high cholesterol. Lewy body, there is no test. The way that they determine Lewy body dementia is as a result of behaviors, some of which are hallucinations. So, and then Alzheimer's typically has more to do with the inability to follow instructions and do tasks. It can attack the brain and the mobility centers. So that's a big deal for you to turn around and say, well, I feel guilty. I'm going to give them a cell phone. Give them a cell phone, just don't charge it. And social media is another thing like the checkbook. It is another
Mhm.
opportunity for them to engage and potentially get people angry or to harass people. It's just not a good combination. We are talking about someone who has a brain disease. So let's not put tools in their hands that can create more challenges for you and more challenges for them. Paige, what are your thoughts on the cell phone and social media?
Cell phones, it really just depends on where they are in their dementia stage.
Do you
We do
allow them
have
in
we've
memory
got
care?
oh yes, absolutely. We don't recommend it, but we try to find out how, you know, where are they in their dementia process? Where are they in their journey? Number one, are they still capable of using the phone? And if it's really super important to them, what we'll do is we'll try to start off without the phone. Don't bring the phone. And we really implement a lot of activities and engagement to try to keep them redirected from thinking about the phone. That helps if when they're coming in our communities think we have probably 3 or 4 residents that have in one of our particular communities that I'm thinking of. And one of the ladies did very well for about 3 months, and then it really became very stressful for her. So we had to pull the fiduciary aside and say, we need to start. It's too complicated for her, so we're going to go ahead and then she wanted to get her a dementia friendly phone, like a Jitterbug or a Raz memory phone. No. At that point, she was not capable of relearning a new device. So we just let her know that, you know what, we're here. We can manage a phone for you. We will call your sister for you. We'll get her on the phone for you. And then we manage that and she can still have communication. And it worked well. It took about 2 weeks of her, the anxiety of that, but it eventually dissipated and we were able to get to try to exit the phone because it becomes very stressful for them. And oftentimes, I mean, at some point, if she didn't know how to dial 911, if you don't know how to dial 911 and call for help, you shouldn't have a phone. I mean,
And if you
at
dial
least a phone,
911, well, but think about
right,
what that does. She calls 911 because she doesn't want to be in your facility anymore. So she calls
right,
911 and says, this is an emergency. They've kidnapped me. And then the
right,
emergency personnel have to show up and you have to get out of bed and go down there and explain to them that this person is a paid resident at your community. So the
right,
question is, do you want to be the caregiver who gets up in the middle of the night to answer that call? And that's the other thing is that
right.
they will call you a million times. I can't tell you
Yes,
I'll be talking to one of my clients, my caregiver clients, and they'll keep looking down at their phone. And I'm like, what's going on? And it's like, oh, well, my mom is calling, my mom is texting, my mom is texting. There must be something wrong. And I said, no, she's just, she wants to talk to you, or she's just looking for someone to, they don't remember what they don't remember. So they don't remember that
right.
they called, they don't remember that they texted. They will deny it when you call them out on it. So, let's
Yeah.
just save everybody the grief and start off on a calmer foot. So, yeah, those first 2 weeks, no phone if you're moving them into a care community, because they will make panic calls to your brother or your sister
Yes.
and say, "Oh my God, they've kidnapped me and this is terrible and I hate this place." And then they'll turn around and say, "I never
Right.
made that phone call. I love these people." So
Right. Right.
get egg on your face really quickly with someone with dementia. So just a heads up.
We do the same thing with TVs too. If they come into our memory care community, we always start with, let's start without the TV. Another
Yeah, because
thing.
you have them all over the place.
We have TVs throughout the community, and our goal is to get them in engagement and
Right.
socialization setting and bonding with the staff and making friendships. So, and
Well, and
residents.
building relationships with the caregivers so that they trust them to help them when
Yes.
time is needed. So, all right, so let's get moving on to the next topic, showers and brushing teeth. So,
Oh, yes.
what do you recommend with showers in particular? And then I can talk to brushing teeth if you want.
Sure. Okay, so showers, okay, everybody. You're probably going to be like, "Oh my gosh, don't say that. There's no way." You don't have to shower your person. And I know this is a big challenge. This is a huge challenge for families. This is typically when they're coming to us and saying, I can't do it anymore. It's a fight all the time. There's a couple different strategies. Utilize a different person, maybe a different family member, maybe a grandchild, someone that is not with the full-time caregiver at all times. But number two is, you don't have to shower to get clean. You can We can do bed. You can rinse yourself with a towel. You can get in the tub with a shower chair and some warm water, and there's not a big shower. They get fearful of the shower head. Getting the parts and getting everything clean. You don't have to have a full shower and be soaked head to toe to get clean. Do certain body parts different parts of the day.
Right.
um you know get the pericare clean when they're on the commode. Those are things that are fearful for them. So just trying to kind of think in a different way. Getting your body clean does not necessarily mean getting completely drenched in the shower.
Right. And I think I know I have husband clients who are like, "Well, no, she needs to get in the shower and I've tried everything." So then I start going through my list and they haven't tried any of those things. So first of all, it's like, "Well, she takes a shower every day. Why? Why do you try to get her to take a
Yeah.
shower every day?" So twice
Right.
a week is plenty. They are not going out and playing in the mud, nor are they running a marathon. So
Right.
a washcloth and some soap will do just fine to do the important areas, and that's all you need to do. They don't have to get in the shower. Then what you also have to think about, like what Paige was saying about being scary, is, if you get undressed and in front of someone, because they shouldn't be left alone to take a shower by themselves, because that's a really dangerous thing to do, and it can result in some huge messes in your bathroom. So it's give them a modesty towel. So either a
Hmm.
bathrobe that can get wet and you can dry it in the dryer, but they need to have something that isn't putting them exposed in front of
Right.
another person. And so that's a really important aspect that we need to preserve. Then for brushing your teeth and less over a shower because that would be complicated, is show, don't tell. So I had a client who
Yep.
said, "My husband won't brush his teeth and now his breath is really bad." The dentist came in, the mobile dentist, and tried to clean them and he wouldn't let them. And I said, "Well, why don't you stand next to him and bring your toothbrush and put toothpaste on his and put toothpaste on yours, and then you both brush your teeth together." Because as the brain degrades in cognitive ability, mimicking becomes more and more prevalent. They will watch
Mm.
what somebody else does and mimic that. So
Right.
you brush your teeth, they brush their teeth. And that's what caregivers, professional caregivers, can do as well. It's like they're going to have really clean teeth and the dentists are going to love them because show, don't tell. And
Right.
and remember too that in both of those situations, you might be the trigger. I have a client who she tried to help her mom take a shower and mom wouldn't do it, but the brother came in and somehow, I don't know if it's his voice or what, but she'll take a shower if he asks her to. So remember
Hmm.
that you may not be the best person to be, providing this type of care or this type of encouragement in this environment. So what's next, Paige? Because again, we're motoring right along on the clock
We're
here.
motoring around here. Okay. Oh, changing clothes.
So
How
this
do we
is
get them to
just,
change those clothes?
and I love the story you're going to tell. So here's the
Yeah.
thing. Again, they're not running a marathon and they're not playing in the mud. So the question is, when do you change clothes? So if somebody's wearing the same shirt and pants 3 days in a row, it's kind of where I wonder are the underwear clean or the undergarments clean? Because that's a bigger issue, right? The clothes are probably
Yes.
not dirty, but sometimes feet, when you eat, you get messy. Those definitely need to be clean. So if you're someone
Yeah.
who your loved one is either living with you or that you spend time with them, those clothes need to go into the hamper. So you've heard the phrase out of sight, out of mind. There you go.
Hmm.
The clothes out of sight, out of mind, and then put the fresh clothes out. And
Yeah.
you can make it an activity and say, okay, what are we going to wear tomorrow? Do you want to wear the striped shirt or the plaid shirt? And that way you can hold them both up. Do you want this one or this one? And then they'll let them pick. And so it's a 15-minute activity. Okay, shoes, and pull out the underwear or whatever other things that need to be pulled out. And so that if they can still dress themselves, let them. I know that some people, some daughters in particular, I'm just saying, will be like, oh, mom, that top doesn't go with those pants. And it's like, who cares? She's got a top on, she's got pants on. That's a thumbs up for me. But we get caught up in controlling the
Mhm.
person and how they behave, and whether they follow the same regime or routine that I do as an adult. This isn't what they used to do. No, it isn't. And it's not going to ever be that way again. And that's where
Right.
acceptance and counseling. So that's what I do with my clients is walk them through
Mhm.
being okay with letting go. Do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? That's what I always ask. So that's my thought. What about you, Paige? Don't we have a person named Ray?
Yes, Ray, one of my faves. Bless his heart. He's not with us anymore. Okay, so Ray was in one of our communities and pretty independent. I mean, for memory care, he was doing really well, engaging well, doing well. As people, about a year and a half into being with us, he just got super hyper focused and was not wanting to change at all. And he would get angry and wanted this favorite plaid shirt. And he would go and find it, pull it out of the dirty laundry, put it back on. We'd get him changed. We'd pull it away, get it to the laundry. And he would just absolutely it was causing behavior. So called Ray Jr., the son, and we said, Ray, we came, sat, and had a care plan meeting. And we said, you know what? Dad loves those plaid shirts. Where'd you get plaid shirts? Got them at Costco, Kirkland plaid shirts. Go buy 8 blue Kirkland plaid shirts and the pants that he wears, and he's going to wear the same outfit every day, but it's going to be a clean pair. So it was funny because family members would come in, other family members, and they're looking and they're like, Ray's in that outfit every single day. Like, you guys aren't taking care of him. He's in the same clothes every day. I pulled him aside and I said, well, just like everybody's going through different times, I said, we're working through some things right now. But I said, that's actually a clean shirt. He has the same shirt. He's got about 8 of them, a whole week's worth. So we just and they go, oh, wow. And I said, this too shall pass. But this is what we're dealing with right now. So at least he was in a clean shirt every day. But you just have to come up with things that you got to get creative, and it is like Pam said, it's always best to be kind than to be right. You're never going to win an argument, and they respond in kindness. If you're kind and smiling and you have really good, not you've got good body language with them, you're going to get a lot more you're going to get a lot more from them. It's going to
Yeah,
be
they're gonna
much
they're gonna
more.
cooperate.
They're
Yeah,
going
but
to cooperate.
yeah.
Absolutely, they're going to
Because
cooperate.
that's where
Yeah.
behaviors come from, is that you're triggering them and you're telling them what to do. And in their minds, you're a spouse or you're an adult child and you're telling them what to do. And that has never been an acceptable thing to do
No,
in for
no.
decades of their lives, like 80 years, 90 years. And so that's the other reason why care communities and like professional caregivers get away with it, because they don't have that history. And then you can get your relationship back with this individual. It'll be loving and caring versus adversarial, because you keep trying them to make them the person you think they should be versus the person that they're
Mhm.
becoming or that they are. Okay, so Paige, we need to skip number 7 and go to number 8. Yes, we over prepare and make sure that we
Oh,
have enough
yes.
content. But I wanted
Okay.
to make sure that Michelle hears the answer to this one. So did you,
Yes.
so it's basically, I'll just let the cat out of the bag. It's about what Michelle said, which is mistaken identity. Whether it's a husband who the loved one thinks is a father-in-law, or a son, but it's a different son. Um, this identity recognition problem is sporadic. So I want everyone to take a deep breath. And if your loved one says, "Who are you?" Don't panic. This is not permanent. It can be due to lack of hydration, poor nutrition, lack of exercise, stress. There's so many reasons why they might be struggling with memory on identity. And so this is temporary. And it's really important that you learn to use reminder phrases. So it's like, I would give you that example earlier where, a client of mine had a phone call, or called her mom and said, "Hi, mom, how are you?" Well, that wasn't enough of a clue. And so she got all
Mhm.
brokenhearted. And I said, wait a minute. You didn't say, "Hi, mom, it's Pam." That's what I would always say. "Hi, mom, it's Pam. How are you today?" And I never asked her how she was, because she couldn't answer. She lost her ability to speak 8 years before she passed. So, but I always said, "Hi, mom, it's Pam." And then if you're a spouse, it's, "Oh, honey, I'm so glad we got married when we did," or, "I love you, my dear wife. I remember the day that we got married." Any of those things, let's talk about the kids, our kids and
Mhm.
our grandkids, and go through a photo album. Any of those things are helpful for reminders, verbal reminders, and that may not click for them immediately. Don't expect that they're going to go, "Oh, that's right." Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, I'm just stupid, ignore me," which is really sad, right? Because they're trying to cover up the dementia symptoms, but instead to say, "Don't worry about it." So Paige, what are your thoughts with mistaken identity and what you should or should not do?
Well, I think you definitely covered that piece is when they don't recognize you. And Michelle kind of talked about that she's not recognizing dad in the house. Just have him remind her, "I love you." Our anniversary is coming up. We've been married for so long. We have beautiful children. Talk stories, tell stories about what's going on to help cue and remind them. The worst thing is to say, "Do you remember? Don't you remember?" You always want to say, "Mom, I remember when we used to do this," or, "My husband, I remember when we used to go razor riding and we were in Sedona." My husband's into razors right now. "And we used to do these fun things. Or we went to Hawaii for our 20-year anniversary." Or, "I remember when we did these things," and lead up to reminding them of the role of who you are in their life. Because sometimes it can be depending on their journey, where they are, it can be a one-sided conversation. And so a lot of times kids are like, I want to go visit my mom, but I don't know what to say, and she doesn't recognize me. And that makes me sad because they don't know what to do. So talking about stories and bringing up good memories will help jog their memory. And maybe it will, and maybe it won't, but they're hearing it. And you might get some really good feedback from them. Pictures, photos are wonderful. Videos are wonderful to talk about. And oh, look, we were hiking there, or we were at the Grand Canyon or Niagara Falls, bringing up stories to help bring them back to jog their memory of the role and the memories, the happy memories.
Right. And the key thing there that I think is important is need to be memories that are in the past far enough, right? So we're
Old,
talking
older. Mhm.
20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, not what happened to Johnny's soccer game last year or a week ago, because they're not going to remember who Johnny is potentially, or they might struggle unless they see Johnny and Johnny brings in a soccer ball. And then Johnny could play catch with them. That would be something to do. One of the things I get that question a lot. I'm glad you brought it up, Paige, of, well, what do I do when I visit? It's like paint a flower pot. I don't know. I mean, there's what activities did they enjoy? My mom had never painted a flower pot before, but sure enough, at Kelch Communities, mom was sitting there, and I said, "What are we doing?" And the activities director said, "We are going to paint flower pots today." And I said, "That sounds really
Nice.
messy." And so everybody got their aprons on. I was like, "Oh dear God, a paintbrush, paint, and a bunch of people who, aren't quite sure what to do with the paintbrush." So again, though, mimicking came into play where there was one person per table who it was a caregiver or an activities person, and so we were all painting, and they're like, okay, so put the paint in there, and then put that on there, and then dip it again, and put it over here, and we put latex gloves on to keep our hands from turning all sorts of interesting colors. So you can do activities. You can go through a magazine,
Right.
a garden magazine if you want. I used to do Better Homes and Gardens and go through that with mom and point out all the pretty flowers because she was a gardener.
Mhm.
So there's definitely a lot of things that you can do. If you need ideas, go talk to someone like Paige at the care community, or there's adult stay and adult day
Mhm.
programs in
That's
every
right.
community in the country. A lot of the care communities have them as well, where you could go in for a day period of time and your loved one can have activities and get
Yes.
stimulated, and you can go with them. They don't have to go alone.
Yep.
It's not a drop and run. It's you go with them
That's
and do
right.
something fun that you're making a new memory for you to remember, and they're having fun. So they have a moment of joy,
Yes.
you have a moment of joy. It's a win-win. So that
Yes.
ultimately is how we handle the situation where someone's kind of struggling and you're not sure what to do. Go do something fun. Go pick flowers, sniff spices. There's so many things that you can do. So if you need more ideas, just reach out to Paige or me. The other thing is we did a dementia care do's and don'ts in April. And if you guys didn't
Mhm.
get the PDF list, the documents, just reply back to any of my reminder emails, and I will send the link to the video from the not just the video, but the PDFs, the documents for you to look through on dementia care do's and don'ts. So
Yes.
yeah, that takes us to the top of the hour. That was quick.
And just real quick before we end, if you are looking at placing your loved one in a type of care setting, um, reach out. There's also respite stay available that's out there. Caregiving stress and burnout is so high. You want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself so you can care for your loved one. So respite care options are also available, so you can try it out to see, before you do something long term. Those are also options as well. So ultimately, we want to be your resource and to be able to give you solutions and ideas and things to bounce back off of, and solutions, and to try things out. So we're glad that you were able to join us today. And we do these monthly, so look out for the
Yep.
next one. We don't quite know
Yep.
what it will be yet, but
Well, and if you guys have any ideas of things that you would like us to talk about, specific topics, we're happy to do so. Meanwhile, we will use our decades of experience and be sure to include as much as possible the details that will help you have a better dementia care journey and moments of joy
Yes,
with your loved one. That's what's most important.
absolutely.
So, all
That's
right. Well,
right.
thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Paige. Thank you, Kelsh. And we will
Thank you,
see you
Pam.
next month, guys.
All right, everybody. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.